What's up everybody, it's me E-Man from E-Man's Movie Reviews, and today we're going to review Spike Lee's newest joint, Da 5 Bloods. Alright, let's jump right into a quick intro. 4 African-American veterans returned to Vietnam decades after the war to find their squad leader's remains and a stash of buried treasure. Enough of that, let's get right into the good.
The good.
Now there's absolutely no denying it. Delroy Lindo's performance is one of the best things about this movie. Lindo benefits greatly given the deeply rich and complex aspects in his character Paul. We see the multiple layers and conflicting issues his character experiences reveal themselves over time. What made his performance so captivating is that he is constantly making the audience question whether we should empathize, relate, cheer for, feel sympathetic, or just root against him. Lindo's delivery in every scene is mostly effective due to the level of passion and commitment he exhibits in some of the most tense moments of the movie. While the rest of the cast also provided some stellar acting, I think much of that was aided by the intriguing themes in the film. Da 5 Bloods tackles a lot of different themes, and that really adds a lot of substance to the movie. One of the themes explored is the theme of fatherhood, and we see that in the character of Paul and David. The most appealing thing about this is how turbulent the relationship between the two can be. When you dig down deep enough, you can see the push and pull of paternal love that does exist. We get to see a son doing whatever it takes to seek the love of his father, and a damaged father struggling to love his son in the best way he knows how. While there are a number of other themes that can definitely be talked about, but I particularly thought the most important one in Da 5 Bloods was the problematic relationship between being an American war veteran and being black in America. From the very beginning, we get to see how this dynamic is both an internal and external struggle. I thought Da 5 Bloods was very successful in communicating the messiness of how the American ideals don't always apply to black people, and the movie placed that notion in a much more humanizing manner. Finally, Da 5 Bloods does a really good job of just doing a different combination of cinematography and editing to really present a very clear message. Spike Lee is no stranger to making his messages overt and obvious through the use of his character dialogue and in the visual style of the presentation of his films. In this movie, there's a blending of images and historical videos to help emphasize the historical references that are being evoked. I think the benefit in this approach is that it amplifies the figures or events with more than just rhetoric that can easily be dismissed or forgotten by viewers. It's much more effective when people can both see and hear something to make the impression that more lasting. Okay, enough of that, let's get right into the bad.
The bad.
Now, I only had a few minor issues with Da 5 Bloods, and one of them was the choice to keep the older actors in a lot of the flashbacks. Whenever the flashbacks happened in the movie, especially with the younger Chadwick Boseman appearing, it felt very awkward to still have the older actors portraying their younger selves. I almost got the sense that they were trying to go for a similar effect that Scorsese's Irishman tried to go for, but maybe they changed their minds on using de-aging visual effects. Granted, I did get over it after a while, but it was still nevertheless distracting for the first third of the film. Another minor issue I had with this movie is going to come in the form of the length and the pacing. Spike Lee is no stranger to making films longer in their runtime, and Da 5 Bloods was no exception given its 2.5-hour runtime. It was a bit offsetting because it was confusing to know the direction of the film itself. For the first 2 acts, it felt like it was more of a movie where we were just going to get to know the characters and maybe just examine their inner struggles. However, with the final act turning into a more traditional cinematic movie, it made me question if we needed the other scenes in the film. For instance, I could easily imagine trimming down some of the chicken scene because it started to feel a little repetitive. Thankfully, it led to a fantastic sequence with Lindo's character, and thus I can also see why it was left in the way it was. The editing and the pacing of Da 5 Bloods isn't a deal breaker for me, but I can see how it may dissuade others. Alright, enough of that, let's get on to the reason.
The reason.
The Five Bloods is a stirring wake-up call given current events while also being a poignant history lesson for anyone unaware of the complicated relationship between being black in America and American patriotism. Delroy Lindo delivers a mesmerizing performance alongside a wonderful cast. As of today, he needs to be in the Best Actor conversation as a nominee. Spike Lee delivers an artistically unique and humanizing take on black war veterans that has been needed in cinema for years. I think that if you're a Spike Lee fan, you'll appreciate The Five Bloods more so because you're already adapt to his artistic style. If you've only seen Spike Lee's more traditionally shot films like BlacKkKlansman, Inside Man, or Malcolm X, then you'll have to prepare for something a little different. For example, the first 2/3 of the movie feels like a character study, while the last third picks up in a much more action-oriented and climactic way. So you may want to stick with this until the end before giving up on it midway into the movie. So when it comes to the rating for The Five Bloods, I've got to give it an 8 out of 10. Because this movie is kind of long, I'd probably also say that it might not be a bad idea to maybe break it up into halves. You know, watch one half now, maybe watch the other half after a little bit. Personally, I thought this movie was really solid, and the fact that it's on Netflix makes it a little bit easier to digest. I mean, this really did feel like a classic Spike Lee joint. So, do you plan on watching The Five Bloods? If and when you do, come on back to this video and let me know what you thought about it. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to check out my interview with the legendary Spike Lee and the cast of The Five Bloods, as I asked them a very interesting question about Drew Brees' controversial statement, and well, let's just say that there was a very interesting answer that they gave me. Anyway, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video. Guys, I always appreciate it. I've got more videos and reviews to do for you all, and until next time, I'll see you all later.